on time. I am going to take off the mask. My name is Frédéric Laporte. And with me you have Julien Topin. Both of us are working for IN Group. I will show you a couple of figures about the company later on. It's a company that exists, that's been existing for quite a long time, and we are now increasing the use of work from home, co-working, and it is very important to be able to identify and authentify people. So we have different solutions that are deployed at state level, and generally speaking, and I will end up with this, at company level as well, using all the Nexus technology, Nexus being a company of IN Group on a platform called Smart ID. Nexus is a Swedish company based in Stockholm. It's also in Germany, in France, and we share our offices with IN Group. Nexus works on employees and their digital identity in company. Beyond workforce, this also goes to IoT, the Internet of Things, which means information systems. Maybe you are not aware of it, but Nexus produces a lot of large volumes of electronic certificates, for example, for radio base stations. So when operators sends information or data to a base station, the base station should not accept the data coming from just anyone. So we're working with Vodafone, for example, and this is done in the IoT. We are also working in industrial environments. One of our largest customers is the Volkswagen Audi group. And as of today, this group is steering robots in factories. And of course, you do not want a robot to take a body of the car and send it away through the workshop. So you need to have secure communication with things. So digital identity is not just about individuals, but also for objects and things in general. Of course, we have common criteria, ELK+, the ISO 27001 for quality. Companies using Nexus technologies are amongst the top 500 in the world, and have roughly 15 offices in countries, and the group is pretty large. For IN Group, in a nutshell, it was created in 1538. We were the printer of the king, and the king being Francis I. And you can see the salamander, which is the symbol of Francis I of France. For those who have visited the Chambord Chateau in the Loire region, you will have seen the salamander everywhere. So that's the company that makes, whether you are French or not, we are making a lot of documents for you, from your driving license to your very latest ID card or passport. 400 million turnover, 1,700 employees, with different kind of activities. I'm not going to express it all. We are in the booth E1, so please come and take a look at the E1 booth to know more about the company. The background, it's using identity when we need flexible offices. That means offices within the premises of the company, but also offices elsewhere, like in co-working spaces, for example, or simply at home. And this is what is done today. There is a strong increase of work from home. I think everybody is living this more or less happily. And digitalization, these use modes are developing under the pressure and under the obligation, the legal obligation to work remotely for the profession that can allow that. And this is why we call it a fast-growing digitalization. And now I will leave the floor to Julien for the Nexus part. Good morning. I will focus now on Nexus solutions, and I will see how they can help us in this fast-growing digitalization of fast-growing home office, in a secure way, of course. Our solution is called Smart ID, but it has several packages in it in order to derive your identity on several supports. And this will allow us to work in different environments in which no one will be able to grasp some data. Digitalization is starting. We are working more and more from home, but we nonetheless go to the office from time to time. So first, you will have a physical support, your badge with your picture, your name, your position. The Smart ID solution will allow you to produce that badge. You have the AD bases, the HR bases, whatever the base you use. Then we will have the digital IT management package, where the same thing will be done, i.e. derivating the identity on a support that will be a digital. That can be on a chip, but on your mobile as well for remote connection. For example, we are talking about home office from your laptop, but also from you can get access to your mail from your smartphone, and you can have different channels for using your digital identity. Then there is another package that is extending the physical ID package. Once the physical ID package is produced, I want to be able to use it. I want to be able to open the doors of my office, for example. And beyond the coding of the badge, we can also record the user on an access base. So you have digital access management. I authorize my badge to open doors, and I will authorize as well my digital identity to open digital doors, i.e. to log in and to get access to Office 365 for reading my email. So that is an identity on ID provider. And then we have the purely PKI part for routers, firewalls, and so on and so forth. So PKI is public key infrastructure. We are now going to focus on digital ID. As you can see, we can manage both types. On digital ID, historically, as I said, we can deploy IDs on smart cards, chip cards, be it the token USB cards or smart cards. Then we have different uses. We will do the same with your mobile phone. So the identity will be derived on mobile. We have our mobile app, which is a card portfolio. We took the image willingly. We took the image of a card, and there will be a digital identity for certification and all kinds of certificates that you can have. We will see later the uses of those certificates. Depending on your level of awareness to some technologies, the principle is rather easy. The PKI will allow us to send certificates to different supports, be they physical or completely digital, within a mobile terminal, for example. And we will be able to use that in order to check who the person is with a private code, like a PIN code. This is what you do when you want to use your bank system, for example. And you can see the link between IN Group and Nexus. IN Group produces ID cards, and we produce digital ID cards, so to speak, i.e. digital certificates. And the last digital identity support is laptop. Most of them have a TPM integrated. That means an encryption chip that can be used for managing certificates or generating keys, and you will have smart card logon, emails, signatures, application login, and so on. What does it mean? It means that when you have the smart card, you will have to put it into a reader, be it inside or internal or in your keyboard, for example. If it's a mobile app, you will have the central system asking to check your identity and sending an information called challenge to your mobile phone. You will type your code in order to unlock the app and therefore to check your identity. And also what you can see as the last use within PCs on Windows, even if I am a former employee of Apple, you have a chip card on your laptop, and the same way that you can customize the chip, you can personalize the chip of your laptop. When I have an authentication request, instead of checking in the smart card or in the mobile, I would simply go into the laptop, and you will have to dial the PIN code the same way you do for your smart card, and this will be used for starting a Windows session or get a remote access or whatever. We will show you some demonstration videos. Just 3 of them in order not to be too long, but if you want, you can come to our booth and we will show you more. So the use cases, first is the Windows login, the access to your workstation, the advantage of a PKI solution is that many other users can be derived. For example, signature and encryption or decryption of emails, VPN authentication, and web apps authentications. We are going to deploy certificates to the Microsoft part of TPM, but the authentication will work on all browsers. Once these identities have been delivered, it's just the first step. I give my digital identity to my worker, and then they can identify. What is important is the cycle management, the life cycle management. As a user, I have a card, and I may forget it, so I need a temporary card. Or I will come back after 3 weeks of holidays, 3 wrong PIN codes. I will need a new one or a new PIN code at last. So temporary cards, unlocking smart cards, either via help desk or in self-service, so-called self-service. And this allows you to limit the help desk line and to be quicker. That means that it's also very important to have different supports of authentication and identification. If my card is locked, I can, for example, get access through my mobile phone and unlock my smart card. A key item is to have dynamic and smart management. Let me give you a very straightforward example. When I am on holiday, the system knows from what date to what date I will be off. The physical control access, i.e. the possibility to access the offices, will be suspended, while the logit access that allows me to get a remote access to my emails, for example, it will be up to the company to say whether it will be open or not. So the physical access, you wouldn't notice the passing. It's not possible to use my card during my holidays, but I can get access, a remote access to my email or not, depending on the security policy of the company. But these are opening, closing, revoking, replacing, or alternative identification possibilities. All this is managed globally based on the company references. We talked about the AD or the HR base. The HR base knows whether I'm on holiday or not. And this is the one that we'll use as a reference in order, for example, to lock the physical access to office during my holidays. We can talk about temporary absence, but what is also very important is offboarding. As soon as a worker left the company for any reason whatsoever, managing physical and logical access in the same solution, we will change this status change and we will deactivate all access, physical access, digital access. So even though somebody gets hold of my card, they will not be able to have access to our offices. As you can see, the access to different resources, be they physical or digital, it's the company software that will manage it. It's the HR system that will revoke all rights, be they physical or digital access. Some customer cases. Airbus. They had several PKI of different technologies, and they increased their PKI volumes due to different standards like GDPR and DAS. They switched to our solution. We migrated all existing PKI and created new PKI for new users, be they for user certificates, but also in IoT. Then we have Vinci Energy Group. It is halfway to workforce and IoT. It's what we call the workplace IoT. That means that it's automatic certificate delivery to physical components, laptops, servers, firewalls, almost no interfaces except for administrators. And admins will define the rules for delivering certificates. Then all Vinci's users will use our PKI without even knowing it. It's completely transparent. They simply have to connect their laptop, and everything is done in a very transparent way. Ministry of Finance is using our platform since 2018 in order to delivering their identities in TPM, trusted platforms modules, i.e. smart cards, embarked smart cards in laptops. It's for authentication, signing, or login, signing, or encryption. So they're using it for all these three possibilities, and they therefore make all their transactions secure. We have a couple of video demonstration. There again, come to our booth and we can make a live demonstration. But the Wi-Fi network is not very good, so unfortunately we preferred making some video. So these are three standard use cases: how the mobile identity is created, then how my smartphone will be used to open my Windows session, and finally it's a mix of different solutions that we offer using my physical smart card on my mobile to get identified. Beware, you might end up burning for being a sorcerer. So here I am as an admin. As an admin, I get access to the fact sheet of the person. The person asks me to activate their identity on mobile. And here I can see what's the proof that she was the right person. Passport, ID card, or scanning. There's a QR code generated. You can see that on the telephone. The user scanned the QR code, then generated PIN code. The user have a Face ID on smartphone, so that means that they can use biometry in order to unlock the app. And there we are, they have their identity on mobile. Our solution is very flexible, which is a major advantage. Here you can see the operator generating the QR code. Technically, the QR code could be scanned in order to use somebody else's identity, but you can have different kind of workflows. You can also have a one-time password. You know, we are specialists when it comes to acronyms. I hope you can understand them. So you can have a QR code with a very short lifespan. The user receives it, scans it, and that's it. And we are almost sure that the user is the only one to be able to use it. Then, when the user has the identity, how can they log in on the Windows session? You have the standard screens. For Windows is a smart card. The user receives a notification on the smartphone as they're using Face ID. Nothing had to do. That means that the phone recognized that the user was the right one. But on the Microsoft side, it's a smart card logon identification that was done. Okay, slower in the user with a smartphone in hand. If they use an Apple smartphone, for example, you can have face scanning or the digital print also. You can put your smartphone in front of your face. The smartphone recognizes that I am the right person, and it's the same as if I had presented my smart card and my PIN code. You know, to be clear, the biometry stays in your smartphone. There's nothing going on the network. We can have fingerprints on Androids, for example, and fingerprints of Face ID on iPhones, Apple phones. Last video, the interest of our solution is to be very user-friendly. The idea is to get access to an app from my smartphone, but I want to protect the access to that app with a physical smart card with a higher certification. The user was prompted as they had access to a smart card. They are asked for a PIN code. It is placed behind the smartphone, and we use the NFC communication system. It was very quick. Smartphone card means access to platform. After this strong identification or login, I can do SSO and get access to several web apps without having to log in again. Why should we use a smart card when we logged from the mobile before? Well, it's easy. In European standards around digital identification, you have standards, you have a regulation defining scales, and you have a 3-layer scales when it comes to identity. It is called EIDAS. So your identity can be a low, medium, or high. A low login is what you do when you have a login and a password. I can say that I am Frédéric Laporte or Fred the Door, to say it in English. In the Apple ecosystem, my ID will be Fred the Door with the password, and it's okay. If you want to go one level up, if you want to use Fred the Door in another context, they say, well, your identity is nothing. Apple didn't ask you to prove your identity to any kind of agent, so the slow ID will not be usable to get access, for example, to your bank account. To open your bank account, for example, the regulation requires to meet the person physically, to have the proof of their identity based on a state identity document, be it ID card or passport. And this is necessary to open a bank account. So to open a bank account, I need to put my brand new national ID card produced by Ion Group. I will be required to produce that ID card, and it will be the same thing for some ID system. You cannot just base yourself on the intermediary security level, and for technical reasons, even though the onboarding process is the same for different users, if the cryptographic certificate is stored in a physical digital safe, like a smart card, that meets to EAL4+ certifications, for example, that means that your identity can be a high-level identity. The same process that puts it in a container software within your company forbids the high-level recognition. So you can use it for many things, for example, for getting access to your bank account, but not for creating your bank account. So there are a lot of things that you will do on the container software in your mobile, and at some point you will be told for that type of users, like creating a bank account or giving a proxy to somebody for voting in my place, then you will need a physical title. Most smartphones today are able to read contactless the chip. So we check the physical ID and the PIN code without you to have a card reader.
Alors là, je pense que je vais te laisser la main.
Next customer, please. Okay. Alors, je parlais là justement de cet enrôlement. Donc, on va avoir sur la droite.
So here, on the right-hand side of this screen, I don't know how to say that in English, but you have the interpreters that will do the translation down there. We have physical support to have physical access or physical control, or the software control, i.e. to connect to some information systems. So in the framework of the physical access control, the technology used is radio frequency technology, RFID, radio frequency identifier. In a case of information system connection, we use a certificate, so a PKI, which is generated automatically, and it is done in an industrial way, in an industrial system in a general way. So this, you can imagine the type of the certification is everywhere. Now, finally, we are talking about a technical solution that could help us to manage the entire life cycle of these applications. So it is an entire work behind that. If I take the identity of an enterprise, well, for instance, the human resource department, even before then, that us, we technicians, we can connect to the directory. There are some steps that have to be performed before. You know, we have to do something like a screening, as my fellow people can say. I mean, a scanning of whatever, a passport, an ID, and then we verify your membership in a social security system, or we have to scan a driving license, whichever document that is necessary to create your identity as an enterprise. If I move that in the Hungarian world, it is the same thing. You have a national identity card. I mean, for the French system, you have to start filling in a file, online file, and at the NTS, we continue with the acronyms in this way. Once you have filled in that, you are going to provide an identity photo, and then you have to print that, the paper and add the photo, and then you'll be asked some other things. I mean, your domicile, if you are of French nationality, another series of documents. I mean, the principle is always the same. You have this part that is the creation, or what we're going to call the setting up of your file before generating an identity that is a professional identity, an identity, a physical identity, or a software identity, or an information technology identity. Now, in the different profiles, professional profiles in the group, I mean, we have been working with the states, and today we're using these technologies, but we are taking all these technologies and putting them in the enterprise, in the framework of the enterprise or the industry. So we have to present these documents I was telling you about before in a different context. I mean, if you are going to the city hall, the municipality hall, there is someone that is going to ask you something, a physical person that is making a connection between you, the physical person, and the paper document, and that says, well, okay, I'm basing myself on this document to say that you already have an ID document. Now, if you go to the city home, to the city hall, you already have a digital identity. Maybe that identity is acceptable, and maybe that could be accepted also by the company. I mean, it could be an information system. I mean, this is my ID card. My ID card has a chip, and so it is a digital card, and so we can be accepted with that also in the company. So. But the problem is that the company has to be able to analyze an ID document. If I come with a document that is a Peruvian or a passport of Senegal, well, how can I say if this is a real document? What is the structure of such a document? I don't know. There is a company called Kisi Technology that has the world repository of all the type of IDs. And so if you move through that, if you go through that, you will know that you will find all the different versions of the different documents. And this is done since the 60s, so it's a long time. I was not even born in 1960, so anyway. You can see the structure of the document, and then you have to after verifying that is the structure of the document, which is not always the true one. I mean, for instance, the identity card of a Peruvian citizen I'm not familiar with, but after verifying the structure of the document, well, on the bottom you will find the attributes, what we call the attributes. The attributes are connected to the identity, but they are not the identity. Maybe Frederic Laporte has a driving license, perhaps. Frederic Laporte has a university degree, perhaps. Can we verify the integrity and validity of these documents? This is what we must do in order to get to give the physical access to something. We at the global level, we have to consider these three stages, i.e. the setting up of the file, first of all, the production of an ID, an identity, or of a group of attributes, and then the use. And we have to go through these different levels. I mean, we see two, but there are three. And these three levels are connected into two levels, the physical world and the digital world. And the connection between the one and the other. I show a digital document that connects myself to the one and the other. I mean, for instance, I show driving license if I am a truck driver, and so I show that I can drive the lorry, the truck, and then the police force can verify my digital identity. This is vital. I mean, before it was paper, but now it's digital, but the connection between the two doesn't exist. We are working to assure exactly that, but I cannot go more into the detail. For the creation side, we cover the physical and digital world, and the digital world is complex it too, because the complexity, do I have an interface, a web interface, or do I have an application if I want to manage the verification of the documents with my way of doing that? That could be, for instance, I am the train service, and I am a company, and I want to manage my connection with my customer, with my brand, and then we have to go through what we have called the Unipay and the kit that has my interface, my colors. Well, of course, I can use this IN Group interface. An interface, a web, is not part of my world, but a mobile application with my colors, my landscape is possible at the level of the creation of this stage. Then we have to accompany the production of these two things, the identity and the connection. We will find in the identity a complete panel at the simplest level. I have a way of saying that is simple level is an identification card, not an identity card, identification card. If I work in a construction company, I have the card of that construction company with my name and photo. If I work for another company, I will have a badge with my photo and my name. So this is the certification identity. So I have to show this card to get access to, for instance, the parking space of my company or to other places of my company. So in this case, we can talk about digital identity because that badge can contain a securized place with some other data. And we can find, for instance, a smartphone on which we can download an application and we can verify everything via that application, so we can create a space in a smartphone to identify ourselves. And then on the bottom, you see the financials in English, i.e. the physical version or the dematerialized version of something. I imagine that while coming here, not only here, we have been asked our health pass. Of course, no, you have shown your health pass either in a paper version, I mean, I have printed the document, or the CDEP, the system, the French information system has sent me an internet address, and I click on that and can show the digital document. So I have a dematerialized version. I can show this PDF dematerialized that I have on my smartphone to the checkpoint. And so you can also upload your health pass in a mobile application, for instance. So you have all these different things that are the same document, the same financial or attributes. The health pass is not my identity. It is connected to my identity, but it is an attribute. So I'm going to have some context, some cases when I have to show it. I mean, perhaps I have to show that I have a diploma. If I want to travel with the SNCF or to Air France, I have to do some things. For instance, I have to upload my passenger locator form, and I have to upload in the passenger locator form my health pass, When I come to the airport, I will be asked to show all these things plus my boarding pass. So the abilities of presenting these attributes and of going through the verification checks to control these attributes is part of all the things we are talking about now. I mean, one last element, the use. The cases of use is the cases when I have to show my identity in order to open doors or to remove barriers. But for instance, a police agent on the public road, on a roadside control, asks me to show a document, and when I show a document, what do I show? The paper document, my mobile uploaded document, or a digital document? It doesn't matter. All documents are good. And this in the evolution of the European regulation, the identity is dematerialized. For instance, the FTI in the transport world is dematerialized starting from 2024. It will be a big time. It will be the pan-European regulation that will affect the entire number of the European member countries. All the European member countries that will adopt the regulation because they will have no other choice will come up to the borders of Europe, and we will have the third parties countries, I mean the countries that work with Europe and are not European, Maghreb or Kazakhstan or other countries. I mean, when they have interactions with Europe, some way or in a way or in another, they will have to comply with this new regulation. Now, in conclusion, I would like to use this video and this screen and this slide. I have left the world of the enterprise to talk about something that you use today, unfortunately, every day, i.e. the health pass, the green pass. The health pass, which is on the bottom, on the right bottom of this screen, is verified by a mobile application that is called Verif. If you are you have to show a paper version or a digital version of your pass, okay? Or you have uploaded your health pass in an application and you show that. This is what we do to verify this document in different contexts that are the activities. I go to the cinema, I go to a concert, I would like to go to a music festival, I would go to the gym, I would like to drink a coffee. I mean, all these things, I have to show the health pass. Second case of use is voyage, travel. Today, we are not in the ready to go. We are at the level of, I show the document when I want to board the train. I show the document when I go to the check-in and I give my luggage there. I show the document when I arrive in a port or whatever. This is the visible tip of the iceberg to you. But upstream, there is a series of things that have to be triggered. I mean, there is a system that is the system used by the Health National Association. And today, if I am a professional of the health system, I will have a professional identity of being a health professional. You don't see that, but when he has inserted this card in the information system, you have to insert yours on the other side. So the two cards will allow the doctor to invoice the Social Security, and the chemists will invoice the Social Security when you buy a medicinal product. Now, we have this on the Carta Plus in France, and we have more than 100,000 health professionals that use this support. I mean, last year was accelerated the starting of this Carta Plus, and to prepare an application on the mobile phone to have the same card, not to have the physical card with you. Now, just to give you some figures, it is only 10% of the health professionals that have activated this ICPS, 60,000. This is the figure of last August, 7 million identifications. So this is quite used. And this will allow the professionals to get connected on the two systems of the information, the one of the verification of the pass and the one of the vaccination, that will allow you to obtain the health pass, I mean the digital COVID certificate. And so it is the same document with presented in the same way, because either you have passed a PCR test or an antigenic test, or you got a vaccination. So it will have some information within the QR code, which is different, but these are two different systems of information. I mean, I have a vaccine or I have passed a test, and at the end, you have a document that can be verified. In the same way, I mean, you get connected to the green part, which is in the middle. I mean, the doctors. You can get connected with them, and they activate their version of this card that is on the mobile, and it will allow them to use the cardless to verify the person in front of them. And for those who do not have the security, because there are some people who work with the hospitals and social security, etc., but they do not have this card, which is reserved by people who obtain it by the order to which they belong. I mean, the order of the physicians, etc. I mean, there is another system. We do not have the right video to show you that, but there is the third logo there, which is the database, which is the RIS in France. So I can put mobile number and email address when I want to obtain the active version on my mobile of that application. And so we can add the person to the system, and the person will be in the system in order to be able to produce those documents. Now, another level where we are present, I mean, this is the non-visible part of the iceberg, and it is very interesting, and it is the other four images. I don't know, for the French, there are the social security, and for the physicians, there is the possibility of producing a sanitary pass, a health pass. But what about the French people living abroad? And they want to come to France. They live abroad, and they have a foreign vaccine. And so the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has to receive their file and has to decide whether the vaccine that has been inoculated in the United States or in China or in Taiwan can be received by us, by France. I mean, the principle is that we have to give an equivalent, and we have to allow these people to come back to their territory and to have a pass that can be used to go everywhere. Now, all this production chain and the reading system of this production chain is done by a group that has been has been working with the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and a lot of other partners. And to the extent to which they can manipulate some health data and personal data, the source code and the sanitary pass are on some public system where you can see the code and know what can be done and what cannot be done. In full transparency, we have received a certain number of reassurances on that, and this is going on very well. I think we have time for some questions now. Do you have any question? You do not have any slide for question and answer time? No? Well, I have some answers, so please ask me some questions. No questions. So we've been clear enough. So we have seen, we have shown you the system for the healthcare system, but with the Nexus technology and the Smart ID technology, we can do the same at the level of the enterprise of the company, which wants to have answers for how can I get your access to the company and how can I identify myself. So if you want to ask questions now, or if you want to send an email after, you will get your answers. So thank you very much.